Welcome back, everybody, to the Giants franchise rebuild on Madden 22. We are going to get right into an NFL draft today. I never start videos with the draft, but that's where we left off in the last episode. I want to do this draft and get through the entire next season and kind of go from there. I'm still going through just the process of wrapping this series up, and we're reaching a really pivotal season here today after the draft. I say that because we've talked about this core now getting older. There are some players who are going to need some new contracts or could be moving on. And in my last off seasons here that I'm controlling, I want to try and set the team up, hopefully to have success once I'm done managing them and do a long-term sim. So, Brian Petrovsky is about to become a free agent after this year, and obviously I would look to sign him to his second long-term extension. And then we also have Shane Ross at 29 years old, reaching the end of his deal. Tavares Towns feels like he just became the starter, and now he's going to be 30 next year, looking for a new deal, but he's been starting with us now for 3 seasons. The running back drop-off here in Madden is not as steep as it is in real life, so he's still a very good player and should be for years to come. Isaiah Cunningham's deal is up. Asante Samuel, Rashawn Graham, Hal Reed, Azeez Ojulari, Antonio Golson, Warren Griffith. This is going to be one of the biggest free agent classes I've had in any series. The names just keep going and going. So part of what I'm trying to achieve today with this offseason is to hopefully be prepared for some of these spots. And I like the team that we have, and there aren't any holes, honestly. I mean, you can't be a 95 overall team and have like any holes on the roster. We are very, very good. So I don't see us having any immediate needs on offense, but we can take a look at things like running back or interior offensive line or even tackle for the future. But defensively now, you have 2 older edge players reaching the end of their deals, 2 corners reaching the end of their deals, plus we don't have like a high-rated slot. So cornerback is definitely something we should be looking at. But I had also noticed today that Antonio Golson is 31 years old. So he was considering retirement last season, and thankfully he didn't. But he's reaching that age where it would make sense pretty soon. So let's get to the 2030 NFL draft then. We pick at 32 overall after winning our 4th Super Bowl of this franchise. And I do have some targets that I have in mind, but most of them are mocked ahead of us. And I don't think I can check the mocks now that I'm in this stage, unfortunately. But let's just take a quick look. I talked about cornerback before, and Trey Sims is one player I do like a lot. I wanted a little more information. 6'2", 188, really solid athlete. And then you see B-press, C-zone coverage. I don't have the awareness or man coverage, but I think late in the first, if he was there, I'd be comfortable. But he is mocked ahead of us already. I also like Barry Williams, and he is a later prospect. But A catching, B press coverage, 6 feet tall. He's a pretty good athlete as well. But I'd have to count on him as basically a man coverage specialist and don't even know his man coverage at all. So maybe in the 3rd or 4th round, I'd be willing to take a chance there not knowing that info. There's also Javonte Riddick here from Alabama. B-man, B-press, C-zone coverage, and a good athlete as well. So based on that, I think of him as at least like a 20 to 40 overall player. Be pretty confident with that. So maybe in the 1st. And I also really like this edge class here. And I really hope in the future they can just have edge in the game so I don't have to check 4 positions. But there are a lot of players here with starting potential. Joseph Casey might be my favorite player, also knowing that he is an elite athlete and has B block shed. This is a case of being lucky with the ratings, even telling us the F injury, but I think he'd be likely good enough to not worry as much about the injury risk. So I think just like the last offseason, I want to sim into the late teens, early 20s just to see what targets are still available. So this draft gets underway. A tackle, Carlos Belser, is off the board going to the Raiders. And the Vikings take a quarterback, Ladarius Bankston. Did the Vikings need a quarterback? Probably not. Doug Moore took them to the Super Bowl as a rookie. But we've all been through the QB drafting logic in this game. Let's move on to a team that's done it like 3 times, and we'll do it again. Alexander Bigby to the Eagles. They go with the pass rusher early. Another quarterback now going to the Jets, followed by Joseph Casey. Well, there goes Tyler Armstead. I know a lot of these players are going to be off the board pretty early, so a trade up is possible. I'd also like to potentially keep our picks where they are and just build depth with how much we have to potentially lose in free agency. There's Stephen Alford, another option is off the board. I know I gave up a bit last year in moving up. There's George Rout, another player to just cross off. Let me see our current picks. I think I traded away a future pick in that last one. So I have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. So no 5th round pick this year. Probably at some point I'll want to move down. We'll see if I can do what I want with these first 2 rounds though. So we're at pick 20, and my main options here, I still have quite a few, but some are like day 3 center prospects. As far as round 1 guys, I think that we can still get a defender. James Trevino, the pass rushers are going. And Javonte Riddick is going to San Francisco. I liked him a lot, but I think that these players here for me are pretty clustered, and I don't want to trade up. Dallas goes tight end. That's actually convenient for us. Trey Sims is off the board going to Miami. Second running back of the first round. And the Broncos take Joe Madsen. So the solid round 1 players are pretty much gone as far as those defenders go. Alright, I've spent some time here trying to work on a trade down that I like, because there's nothing I really want to do in this spot right now. My targets have been mostly taken, but the trade downs no one's offering like a future first round pick. And part of my idea here is that it would be nice if I had extra picks next year, because the team might have a couple holes. I can draft now to try and predict where they will be, but next year I would actually know. But I'm trying to find some of these teams and improve like the trade in my favor to get more what I'm looking for, and I haven't had much luck. Like the Miami trade here was interesting, getting their 2 next season. It's projected to be high. They were pretty good last year though, I believe. We get a 3 this year, and then a bonus 7. So our first pick this year would be at 64 overall. Then you have like Atlanta offering next year's 2 and 3. We'd also get a 5th round pick this year. But is that return really good enough for our first pick to still be at 64 this season? If we were to stay at this spot, I think Andrew Stoudemire might be one of our better options. B awareness, B finesse. We have plenty of defensive tackle and defensive line talent overall. I think I'll take this trade from Atlanta. I'd like to be getting maybe a little bit more, but it will help us build up a nice set of picks for next season when I think these picks are a little more important and I'll know what I want to do with them. So they move all the way up, and they do take a really good player in Andrew Stoudemire. So I do like Barry Williams. He's 23rd right now on the board. And if we don't take him now, he might not be there at our next selection. Can I find anybody else I like more than Barry Williams? Let's see here. Outside linebacker Ryan Callaway. Looks like he's a really good athlete. I like this. Skill-wise, I got nothing. There are a lot of receivers in this class that should go in this range, but that is definitely not a high priority right now. I think we'll be able to get a deal with Rashawn Graham. We have Deion Myers, and I don't think that we have to keep drafting right now. Terrence Faulkner. We have a defensive tackle here at 309 pounds who has A power moves, F tackling. So he's somebody that might be a solid fourth defensive lineman going forward. We have a pretty good group right now. Beyond this year, you have Quandre Holt, Daquan Byrd, and Patrick Perkins. You know, this might be early, and it might not work out, but I like the athleticism here from Barry Williams. He does have B press. The catching, you know, that's cool. C awareness. The D zone coverage you do worry about. Like, what if he's a 66 overall and doesn't have man coverage ability either? There is some upside, I think. This is a huge risk, though, to take him bottom of the second. I think the hope would be that he's the day one slot as soon as he comes into the team. Is he good enough to fill that role? I'm going to take him here. This pick has a very high ceiling, but a very low floor at the same time. I'm kind of intrigued here with Brian Chamberlain as a developmental player. He's a big edge rusher at 6'5", 272. He also has some traits here, like loves to use his spin as a counter, relies on swift arm over, speed to power. His finesse and power moves, though, we know they're D and C. But he is a pretty good athlete, especially when you look at his size. And then skill-wise, B tackling, C play rec. Do you think there's enough there to start, you know, developing him? I am intrigued. He's the 12th ranked available player right now. And I think the edge class, you know, isn't as strong with the players remaining, so definitely not a year one player, but I'll take Brian Chamberlain here. I'm intrigued with him. I still have two guards on the board too. They had good combines. This is Tyler Lacey. B pass block finesse, run block finesse, and pass block power. We have him, I think, as a really good fourth round option. And Lucas Hartman. Again, we have some B ratings. Combine, not as fast. Did find, though, on the bench, his strength says solid. So, like, right in the middle. F run block finesse. That definitely tanks some of the ability there. And then Lacey. Alright, his strength they have is decent, which is lower. So think 83, 84. So Lacey right here. A decent option. Very athletic, though. I think we can make this pick. I like having good backup offensive linemen. Hidden development. Okay. All right, so we have a really good athletic lineman that we can hopefully find a spot for. And if he's this athletic, who's to say he can't also be the tackle eventually? You know, that's not out of the question. 6'2's on the shorter side, though, for tackle. I wonder what percentile that would fall in. That would be in the 0 percentile, according to Mock Draftable. He would be the shortest tackle ever at the combine at 6'2", according to this data, since 99. There are some guards that have checked in 6'2" or shorter, but 6'2" is still in the, they have as the 4th percentile as far as height goes. But hey, that seems to be a solid pick. We'll see how the other ones go. I hope that this isn't just a class that does little for us. You know what? I think we're going to double up here on edge. We have Donald Meadows here from Oregon, who's 6'5", 261. His combine looks really good. The ratings say that three of those are solid, a couple are marginal. So really it's just the acceleration is nice. But skill-wise, A, power move, B, awareness in the 5th round. Yeah, we're going to draft Donald Meadows as well. 80 speed, 72 strength, and 90 acceleration. We're going to take a wide receiver here, Andrew Iglesias in the 6th round. I like the spin move, stiff arm, catch in traffic combination. That sounds pretty cool. He has good speed, strength, acceleration. Let's bring him in. And the last player here is going to be Scott Faulkner, who has B kick accuracy, elite kick power, and maybe he eventually takes over for Justin Tucker, 96 power. We draft him and the class is complete. So how did the first 2 picks go for us? I give up the 1st round pick, and here is the rookie class. Starting with Barry Williams at 70 overall, drafted 64th overall. I think that would probably be good enough to start in the slot. 70 man. So it wasn't that both were really low. At least man was up there. I think Williams can play right away with this. Next up, Brian Chamberlain, 64 overall. So lowest overall player we took. Love the size, love the athleticism, but the development needs to happen. He's somebody you'd have to have as a focus player for 1 to 2 years before he was really prepared. Tyler Lacey, we know he has hidden development, so that's already a really exciting pick. And he's a solid pass blocker as well, so a perfect option to fill in if somebody gets hurt. Love that selection. Donald Meadows, we come back with our 2nd pass rusher, and he has 80 speed, 90 acceleration, 78 power moves. So more likely to play early. Add some depth there. He has decent block shed as well. And then we take a chance here on Andrew Iglesias, a receiver in the 6th. And it looks like he has decent hands. Short route running is his best, but he's not a great route runner. I was hoping with the juke, spin, and some of those other ratings, he might have higher ball carrier vision. But there's some stuff to work with there. Also, lower kick returning is kind of disappointing. And then Scott Faulkner, he wraps it all up for us. And I do think that he probably could play. It's just we have the best kicker of all time right now, so maybe not this year. Overall, I mean, starting with our first pick at 64 overall, I'm pretty happy with the draft this year. Hidden dev, offensive lineman, day 1 starting slot corner, and then some players that can develop. So I think that's all you can hope for in this situation. So when the Falcons moved up, they did so after taking Brian Wesley with the 30th pick, a hidden dev safety. And these ratings are really solid. 91 speed, good coverages on day 1. He has some hit power. They trade up to take Andrew Stoudemire. So they bring in a defensive tackle who's a strong run stopper, offers a bit of pass rush, and he's really athletic. So you have to think he's got a high ceiling, even with normal dev. And then they came back in the 2nd and took Cameron Howard, a 72 hidden dev linebacker. So they really boosted all levels of the defense with really high quality picks that could all be day 1 starters. That's impressive drafting for them. And even in the bottom of the 4th round, I mean, a 69 overall slot corner, Matt Kirkpatrick, probably not far off from at least being a contributor. A 70 overall tackle went number 1, though, to the Raiders. Hidden development, 70 overall, Carlos Belser. Doesn't have the best strength for the run blocking. Is a good athlete. But it looks like there were better tackles in this class. 77 quarterback went number 2. If we look at and sort by overall, Rashawn Boulware was the number 1 player along with Tyler McDonald. And Boulware was on my board. I decided not to move up for a pass rusher, but he would have been the one to move up for with those power moves. Oh wow, I had no idea Quan Keenan was that good. I had looked at him prior to recording. Quan Keenan, hidden dev, 95 speed. Yeah, I think he had A short route running, and I'm like, wow, an A grade. That's impressive. That's a really, really good pick. I also had AJ Betts on my board, and he was there with our first pick. Just didn't think receiver was a great call this year, and I didn't think that he was like elite. If you need a receiver, he was a good pick, but for us as a wide receiver 4 or 5, wouldn't really help us a lot right now. So that wraps up the off season then. I know it's kind of a weird episode. We go from a draft into a season, and we're going to go all the way through. All right, undrafted free agents. Let's start with a running back here from Hawaii. It's Jamie Franklin. And he's just got a little bit of everything here, it looks like. Has some catching ability, has decent vision, break tackle, some moves. Good practice squad candidate. He's not a rookie, but we're going to bring in Chris Brooks for linebacker depth. Just field general archetype at 68 overall. And again, not a rookie, but I'll bring in Chris Webber to be a developmental run stuffer. Not too many undrafted players this year. Rayshawn Graham shows up here in preseason week 2. He is impressed with last year's Mr. Irrelevant selection, Andrew Vallejo. All right. Let's see what that can do. Just a quick look now at the preseason stats, and Tyler Hunter continues to do well as the newest QB2 on the team. Tavares Towns, fantastic as always. Receiving, Antoine Vincent really picking up where he left off. And then there's Vallejo, and we got that situation with Rayshawn Graham, and we'll see if we get to follow up on that at all. Doesn't always happen, but we'll see. 2 sacks for Ojulari, but not much in terms of pass rush. And then 4 interceptions and a few pass deflections. Here are the final roster moves for us then. It was actually somewhat difficult here to get down to 53 players this season. There's some depth I didn't want to try putting on the practice squad or anything. But I am ready now to start going through another season with the Giants, and we'll see what is thrown our way this year for a challenge. But we have an offense that I expect once again to potentially be the number 1 in the league. We just have so much talent, and the receivers broke out nicely last year with Myers and Vincent. On defense now, we have a new starting free safety in Landry Haskins, and we'll see how he does in his first season there. It's year 2 for him. Got some good development a year ago. Barry Williams in the slot. Otherwise, we know these players by now pretty well. The season opens with a win against the Dallas Cowboys. 31-24, close game, good game, but we win the game, and they have a new quarterback. All right, Aiden Blanton. We'll have to take a look at that. Tavares Towns went for 102 touchdowns. Deion Myers, 4 catches. Vincent, 3. We start the year in the win column, though, and our pass rush duo here each get a sack in this game. A pick for Cunningham in week 1's a good start. I don't know where Dak Prescott went, but they have 4 quarterbacks on the roster, and they are starting Aiden Blanton. 25 years old. Pretty good downfield thrower. Has some mobility. And he's spent his career previously with the Patriots, but he has no data before 2029. So I have no clue if that means he was a free agent or something, or just didn't play at all. Dak Prescott is the #1 rated free agent quarterback at 79 overall. You have to think at some point this year he gets signed. He can still start for a team for at least a season, I'd say. We did suffer an injury in week 1, and that was to Hal Reed. So, we'll have to use some of that tackle depth now for a few weeks. Wow, a loss to the Carolina Panthers for the first time maybe in the entire series. This is a team we've always played well against, but they have a new quarterback, John Espinoza, and he puts on a show against our defense. That's a really good stat line. They also ran the ball fairly well. They have a lot of new players from the last time we really paid attention to this team. And maybe they'll be better now as a result. What is this? 28-7? When is the last time this team was under 500? 2 interceptions from Brian Petrovsky. Daniel Jones with 2 touchdowns. So 2 teams we've had a lot of success against have now beaten us early in the season. And we find ourselves 1-2 to get the season underway. 2 interceptions for Jalen Ramsey. Remember when I passed him over in free agency? We have a calling it quits locker room activity here, and my philosophy is usually if I get it from the same player twice, I let them retire. So if it's Antonio Golson, probably going to just let him retire. I will let him do that. But who is it going to be? No! It's Golson. One of the best players of the entire series. It's the second time this has popped up. It's identical to the Teron Armstead situation. And if his heart's not in it, after leading the AFC in sacks a year ago, it looks like we are having to replace one of the best draft picks and one of the players from the first draft class of the entire franchise. Antonio Golson has retired. Let's see if it still lets me check out his stats. I think there's a way, right? In the legacy leaderboard, you are able to. So he was a part of 4 Super Bowl championship teams, 11.8 thousand legacy. Thankfully, I can still see the stats from here. But I thought he would still have a pretty good season this year. He ends the year with 1 sack, 19.5 the year before. A pretty great career. And suddenly a massive hole on this team. We're going to make a move signing free agent pass rusher, 33-year-old Montez Sweat. David Camp is going to become the new starter opposite Azeez Ojulari. Sweat will come off the bench as added depth for us. So this is a big chance now for David Camp to show that he can start. He's been on the bench for a long time, but those days are over. Coach, your team has struggled out of the gate so far, and when that happens, a lot of blame is usually placed on the quarterback. Let's put it on the team. We only scored 7 points in week 1, so that's not a good sign for Petrovsky this year, but let's just not single anybody out at this point and try to beat a winless Colts team. New York gets back to 500. All right, 2-2 on the season. Petrovsky throws a pair of touchdowns, and we get 2 more scores from Tavares Towns. Rayshawn Graham goes for 70, but Tavares Towns wanted to put the team on his back today with 68 receiving, 2 receiving touchdowns. Josh Meadows, 5 for 54 against us. In week 5, going up against one of the better AFC teams, the Jaguars defeat us. We only put up 16 points. We haven't been a very high-scoring offense this year, even in the victories. Travis Etienne back with the Jaguars. Receiving, Deion Myers and Laviska Shenault both go over 100 yards. Etienne scores twice against us. So I guess it's a revenge game for him. But this is more struggling here than we're used to. We're used to this being a very elite team. But so far this season, I mean, we're 20th in scoring offense, 18th in scoring defense. This isn't normal. Now we take on the Falcons this week, and of course we have their second and third round pick next year. And right now, you would think that those picks could be later in their rounds with them already 4-1. And looking at some of the ratings down below there, maybe they got a huge boost from this rookie class with the #1 rush defense so far in the NFL. We do help our draft picks next year maybe be a little bit higher by defeating Atlanta. Again, not doing a lot offensively in terms of yardage and not scoring a lot. 118 yards. That might be a career low for Brian Petrovsky. Tavares Towns is definitely having a good season here to start the year. And then he catches a touchdown again this week, but Petrovsky's definitely not putting up the big numbers this season. 4 sacks in this game, none yet for David Camp. Jamario Hopkins gets a pick. He's the 4th corner. So that puts us at 3-3 now. I want to take a look at the contracts for this coming year. There should be plenty of salary opened up. And obviously, Petrovsky is the big one. If we sign him to this deal, we still have $153 million. There are just so many players here. Tavares Towns, would I go 5 years? That's a lot. I'd rather do a nice 3-year deal worth a lot of money. Shane Ross. There's AJ Cole again. Isaiah Cunningham. That's getting up there now with his superstar dev. Samuel, Rayshawn Graham, Hal Reed. Yeah, this is definitely one of the biggest free agent years I think I've ever had. At least now we're going to get to see David Camp start for a full season before having to make a decision like this. But there are a lot of decisions to be made. The Washington football team takes the division lead. They're the only team in the NFC East above 500 with this overtime win against us. Petrovsky did put up the big yardage here that you're used to seeing, but now we didn't get much from our running game. Petrovsky almost outrushed Towns. Myers had a nice day, so did Graham and Terry McLaurin, but we give up 30 points and drop our 4th game already this season. Patrick Perkins had a nice day with 3 sacks. Hopkins picks up pick number 2. This team has been all over the place. We've only had a streak this year once. We bounced back with a win. We'll try to put together our first winning streak of the season, but it's our best offensive showing. 462 yards, 38 points, Petrovsky 2 touchdowns. He does seem to be protecting the football pretty well this season. Towns bounces back, Webster scores 3 times. Didn't expect that. And it seems like Deion Myers is probably the leading receiver right now. 1 sack for Perkins. Petrovsky has 14 touchdowns to 4 interceptions right now. Tavares Towns is just under 700 rushing, averaging 86 yards a game. And Deion Myers has been the #1 receiver this season, oddly enough. Defensively now, Patrick Perkins does lead us in sacks. David Camp does have 2, but Perkins having maybe his breakout season in year 3. First 2 years were a little quiet. There were some injury issues, but he came into the year with 3 career sacks and already has 6.5 this season. We have 1 injury to check on here in week 9, and it's Quandre Holt tearing his Achilles. The top-rated player on the team is done for the year. All of a sudden, this team is now down 2 of the best defenders. If you include the loss of Antonio Golson. What does that mean for the defense the rest of the way? The defense is a big reason why this team has been so dominant. And now, this is the defensive line with Perkins, Lawrence, and Bird. Bird and Perkins become the third down pass rushing duo. And now you have David Camp all of a sudden starting at edge, Landry Haskins at safety. This is far from the best defense we've ever had in this series, especially now, losing our two best pass rushers. I think the only way around it is we have to step up the offense, and we've done that lately. We are now 6th in scoring, 6th in rushing, as the defense drops off significantly. We're going to have to score a lot of points the rest of the way to make up for the losses defensively. And there is the first winning streak. Now we win this game 20-7, getting a great game from the defense as we intercept Connor Donnelly 3 times in the game. And Antoine Vincent leads us in receiving. Interceptions go to Quentin, Hopkins, and Peppers. So now Jamario Hopkins has 3 interceptions. And we have another injury to talk about now. This time, Otis Springs will miss 2 games. Matthew Hearns can play and fill nicely. All right, we're getting on a roll now. We have 3 wins in a row. We defeat the Saints this week. Normally, I wouldn't go through literally every box score if we won like 6 games in a row, but it hasn't been a streaky season like that. It's had more surprises. Petrovsky 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Great day again rushing, and Bobby Webster continues to contribute. I think he'll be developing into a solid number 2 with all this playing time he's getting. Warren Griffith catches a pair of touchdowns. Does seem to be a quiet season for Rashawn Graham, as he is in a contract year approaching 30 years old. And we get interceptions this week from Matthew Hearns filling in for Otis Springs, but also Isaiah Cunningham. We have a new injury. These have been popping up more, and now we have lost Bobby Webster for 4 games. So running back depth now will be challenged. I think at this point, I would like to try and put together the contract now for Brian Petrovsky. He's currently asking for $152 million over 4 seasons. That is $38 million a year. I would first like more years. I think a 6-year contract would be pretty safe. And that 6th year would have a lower cap number because the signing bonus only is spread out over the first 5 years of a deal. So if you have like a younger player and it makes some sense, like a star quarterback, like those 10-year deals then make so much sense for like a star quarterback. But in this case here with him being 36, I think is plenty. I'm going to offer him a $40 million a year deal. He was asking for 38. Brian Petrovsky takes the contract. Obviously, we wanted to get that deal done. It lets us know what we have left for everybody else. And there are the cap hits going into the future with that 2036 way far off at $22 million. But it will go all the way from 39 to 47.9 over the course of this extension. I also don't want to move on from center Shane Ross. He's looking at 37 over 3. I'll boost this to 39. That would be $13 million a year for a center. And he accepts that deal. And then Isaiah Cunningham would also be one of the deals I'd say is a more obvious one I'd want to get done. I'll go up to 5 years even. Players like it when you tack on the extra years. 5 years, $92 million. So I'd say it's going well so far. Rashawn Graham, we'd love to bring him back. I will wait a little bit. He'll be regressing at the end of the year. For Petrovsky, I didn't want to risk it going to the end, even if I could franchise tag him, because I want the multi-year contract. So most players that are older, I will see how they regress. And I probably should have for Shane Ross. Didn't really think of it, but he's a 96 overall. I definitely want to keep him around. He's the league's number 2 center. We'll move away from the contracts for now, and we are in first place right now in this division, but Washington already defeated us once. They're playing for the tiebreaker now in Week 11. And the Giants have won their 4th game in a row. Now we are the winners in overtime. Not much passing here for Brian Petrovsky. That's not how you celebrate the big contract. But Tavares Towns does do his thing. 116, 2 touchdowns. Nothing too spectacular here in the stats outside. Okay, we have 2 sacks for Perkins, 1 for David Camp. But Jamin Davis had 20 tackles. 15 of them solo. He did allow 6 catches, but he can definitely stop the run. We're certainly playing like our dominant selves again. 45-7. This is more like it. 2 touchdowns on the day for Petrovsky, but a lot of these are on the ground, and Bobby Webster has to be close to like 10-15 rushing touchdowns at this stage. Great day all around. Offense is looking normal, I'd say, for them. Cunningham picks off a pass. I think we still have a good chance to maybe get that 1 seed, which at 3-4 wasn't even on my mind. Right now, we still have some work to do as the projected 3 seed. Bobby Webster has 11 touchdown runs this year. That leads the team. Rashawn Graham isn't far behind Deion Myers. They're both having really good seasons. And then Vincent and Griffith have similar production. Unfortunately, Jason Weaver has fallen off with us. Probably won't get a 2nd or 3rd contract, but we still have a lot of really good receivers. Bobby Webster has torn his bicep, and he is going to not be able to play until the playoffs, I guess. Now, it's also showing here Quandre Holt, his injury went away. Now, there's a bug when players practice. Like, they can get practice XP when hurt, which doesn't make much sense. But if they suffer an injury in there, it overrides their previous injury. So that's a weird bug introduced into franchise that wasn't fixed this year. Regardless, though, it was a torn Achilles. I won't be bringing him back, even if the game somehow allows me to. We're going to need another running back to play, and Jay Fulton, I think, would be a really good fit. And we'll sign him right now. Moving ahead to Week 16, we are 9-5, still in first place, but the injuries continue to pile up. Now, Tavares Towns has an injury, and so does Matthew Hearns. So Towns is not going to finish the season. There are 3 games left to go. We're 9-5. The Cowboys have been on a winning streak now, and we still have a finale against them. Jay Fulton, who was just signed, now becomes the starting running back. And that is no problem for us against Tennessee, winning 41-10. Petrovsky puts up 4 touchdowns without his star running back beside him. Jay Fulton does rush for 67 yards. Stephon Becton found the end zone. Warren Griffith caught a touchdown and led the game with 83 yards on the day. Deion Myers, 56 and 1 for him. Oh, wow. Off-ball linebacker Otis Springs gets 3 sacks in this game, while Azeez Ojulari also gets 3. San Francisco does defeat us in the second to last game, 35-31. This could be a potential playoff preview. And Fulton, 79 yards. We got 2 scores from Becton. But we lose a close one here. Defense has had some tough games here this season. And this might hurt our chances entirely of being the number 1 seed. Now we're going to close the year against the Dallas Cowboys. And they're now 9-7. Somehow they got back in it. We haven't clinched anything at this point either. The 49ers, they're going to probably be the 1 seed. We can't catch them now, so we're going to have a wild card game if we make the playoffs. So you have 2 divisions represented right here, the West and the South. So those teams that have clinched, 2 of them are going to be wild cards. So who's the last wild card then? We're in fine shape, though. There's not much chance of us missing entirely. I suppose if Seattle wins, the Cowboys win, and get a tiebreaker over us, that would be a problem. What's the division record, though? We're 4-1, and they are 2-3. So I don't think they can change that. I don't think the Cowboys can actually win this division, so we should be fine. And we beat Dallas, which makes everything so much easier to figure out. 24-21. Petrovsky throws a touchdown plus an interception. Jay Fulton really stepped it up in this game. 95 yards, 2 touchdowns. All of a sudden, he had to start 3 games for us. And caught some passes as well. Rashawn Graham goes for a $110 in the finale. TJ Watt intercepted a pass playing for the Cowboys. You never know what's going to happen here. But we end the season now with an 11-6 record. I'm still used to like the 16 game like record possibilities. Like 11-6 just feels wrong. 11-5, 12-4, 10-6. I like that. I really don't like 10-7, 9-8. But it looks like our first matchup here is against the Arizona Cardinals, the top scoring team in the NFL this season. Before we get there, let's check out some stats and then get on to the playoff run. So Brian Petrovsky threw under 30 touchdowns this season. We still scored a lot, but more of those touchdowns seem to be on the ground. This is a career low. However, it was also one of his better years in terms of interceptions and completion percentage as well. Tavares Towns still went for 1270 on the ground this year, 10 touchdowns. Jay Fulton, 304, was more efficient than Bobby Webster. And then Deion Myers ultimately leads the team in receiving. He and Graham each go over 1,000 yards. And then Griffith at 680. Vincent at 524. So we didn't really throw for as many yards as we have in the past. Offensive line was really good, only giving up 17 sacks this season. And then on defense, Patrick Perkins leads this team with 10 sacks. Azeez Ojulari had 6. Daquan Byrd had 6. So you have pending free agents here, Ojulari and Camp, who didn't have like massive seasons, but will be looking for massive paydays. Camp is looking for something in like the $12 million range, I believe, and Ojulari closer to 20. And we know how good he's capable of being. But now, the last 2 years, the pass rush productivity has dropped off. So I think in this situation, I'm probably signing players I'm more sure about producing at a high level. And then if there's still cap space left over, then maybe sign Camp or Ojulari. Probably not both. But that's become more of a tricky situation now. Lamar Jackson wins the MVP again. How about the NFC awards quick? Kyler Murray, Offensive Player of the Year. Chase Young on defense. Quan Keenan is Rookie of the Year. Brian Wesley on defense. The Falcons had a few players up here as they went 12-5 this season. So those picks they're giving us won't be all that high in their rounds, unfortunately. So we are on to the wild card round, the playoffs against the Arizona Cardinals. This was not an elite season from New York. We're used to this team being the 1 seed, and this time around, despite winning the division, we're the 3 seed. So we have a lot more work to do if we want to try getting back to the Super Bowl. We pick up the wild card win against the Cardinals. Brian Petrovsky throws 3 touchdowns, but under 200 yards. Because welcome back to Tavares Towns, who ran for $145 and carried 30 times. Nobody gets 30 carries in a single game anymore. But he does, and it's a big part of us winning this game and advancing to the next round. How about the Detroit Lions at 9-8? We played them a handful of episodes ago when they were off to a nice start, and ultimately we won easily. Well, they're back, and they're on the road to take us on here in the division round. And just like that, the Giants season is over. 27-24, Detroit is moving on. A big day for the 2 quarterbacks. Connor Donnelly, 369 through the air, 3 touchdowns. 100 yards for Jamar Henson. What a day for this Lions offense. And we will not be repeating as champs this year. Ultimately, this doesn't surprise me a ton. We weren't as dominant outside of a couple games. So as we see the playoffs now, San Francisco lost 14-5 to Seattle. So we have the 4 and 7 seeds here in the NFC, the 2 and the 5 in the AFC. It's going to be a weird Super Bowl. It's also going to be a weird Pro Bowl because usually our players don't play in it. And maybe we won't have a lot this year either, but Deion Myers is in, Christian Tolbert, Shane Ross. So we have a handful of Pro Bowlers, but this just wasn't as good as some of the other teams that we've had. We came into the year with around $10 to $15 million in cap space. We basically did everything we could, but it just wasn't as strong of a team as we've had. Then you throw in the retirement of Antonio Golson, the season-ending injury to Quandre Holt. It was clear that something would have to step up, and nothing did enough for us to stay on top. That means this year's Super Bowl will be between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Detroit Lions. Will they bring it home finally as the Lombardi headed to the Motor City? Wait a minute, why did I just unlock this? Relocate a team? I haven't relocated anything. I'm playing as a coach. I don't even think I have the option to relocate. So I'm not even sure why that just popped. That's weird. All right, everybody. The Super Bowl champions this year are the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're 7th. Good fight there from the Lions. They lose it 28-20. That means we're on to the next offseason now as we complete another single season simulation. Here are the retirements. Najee Harris, after 10 years, has retired. That's a little earlier than I would expect. Jabril Peppers has retired along with Jawan Johnson. 2 of the most important players from this franchise have now retired. Great careers for the 2 of them with us. We can still check out the stats here for Jabril Peppers, though. Really wish he wasn't all of a sudden released from our team. What happened to the stats? It's missing data. Only 12 years worth. The data's here for Jawan Johnson, but that is really strange. I expected the retirement of Peppers at some point. But every year we also have to take a look at the career stats, and Brian Petrovsky has crossed 300 passing touchdowns now. Tavares Towns is over 7,000 rushing yards, 92 touchdowns. Rashawn Graham, 577, 8 years into his career now. For sacks, the active leader for us is Azeez Ojulari. Will he still be on the team next year? We'll have to see. I wonder if any records here have been affected at all. So here are the passing yardage records. And, I mean, some existing players at the start of the series would have added on to their totals. Passing touchdowns, Tom Brady got to 670. That's not getting caught anytime soon. Rushing yards in a career. So Nick Chubb and Christian McCaffrey have passed Emmitt Smith. That 18,000 is so high, by the way. It's going to be so hard for anyone to ever catch Emmitt Smith. Saquon Barkley has the most touchdowns, and a lot of those came with us in this series. Yeah, Jerry Rice, even in a pass-heavy NFL, this is so, difficult to catch. He played so long. His touchdown record is also pretty outstanding, and you consider Randy Moss one of the best receivers of all time as well, who ended up setting the record for most passing or receiving touchdowns in a season. He only got 75% of the way to Jerry Rice's career mark. So, yeah, good luck catching him. Now, the catches I could see going down maybe in the next 10 years or something like that, because there are a lot more 100-catch receivers in the league. But who would actually be close enough to get there? I don't know where Hopkins is right now in real life, but he's caught a bunch of passes. 200 sacks for Bruce Smith. Not a lot has changed here other than Chase Young and Brian Burns. Interceptions, yeah. These are impossible to catch. Most of these players have been in the top 10 for decades. All right, this is a new record. Nick Chubb, 22-18 in rushing yards. With a 17th game, I think this one has a chance to go down in real life sometime soon. Jonathan Taylor got over 18 last year. It just takes a couple of really good games, like a couple 250s, and then you got to stay healthy all season, too. Saquon Barkley got 26 rushing touchdowns, and that was with the Chargers in this series, not us. The sack record has been broken a bunch in this series. DeForest Buckner and Chase Young have 25 each. So we'll pick up the action next time with the offseason, and we'll go from there. But we have decisions to make here on a ton of players still. Tavares Towns, Rashawn Graham, Hal Reed, Warren Griffith. I'm doing my best to keep this team competitive, but as the core has gotten older and there are still so many good players, we're going to see more turnover, looks like, going forward. But that is going to do it for this video, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it and are enjoying the final chapter here in the Giants franchise. Please leave your feedback down below. Let me know what you think of these videos. If there's a way I can make them better, also let me know. But please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. Have a great day.